like this light may be too bright. I may have to turn it down. Let me take a look at it on the screen. I'm having a hard time seeing. But anyway, as we're getting into this video, as I'm waiting for it to pop up in the background here, everybody get into chat. Let me run through the disclaimers I normally run through, and that is, this is a weekly live broadcast, so I do this pretty much every Thursday evening. It just kind of depends on how life is. It's been pretty hectic lately. I had to miss 2 weeks ago. Couldn't give any notice. I apologize for that. Last week I had to cut it to 30 minutes, but tonight I think we're good for a full hour. I don't have any topic planned. I just do my best to respond to your comments that come in on the live chat. So if you're watching this video after it's gone live and it's posted and you're watching the recording of it, I may not get to those comments. I do my best, but it's been pretty busy lately. I haven't been able to do that. What else? Just be family friendly is all I ask. Do not start cussing at anybody. Do not start, don't be hateful or anything like that. Let me see if I can get this lighting a little bit better here. Turn that down maybe just a tad bit. There we go. Maybe that's a little bit better. We'll see what that looks like. And I don't know, I may still be a little too bright. I'll turn it maybe a little bit so it's not quite on my face. And let's turn it down just a tad bit more. There we go. Let's see how that works. We're going to go with that for right now and see how it works. All right, so let's get into it. Sorry for the delays there. All right, Mark is here. Good evening, Mark. He says, hey, all, don't forget to vote if you're in the U.S. Okay, well, go vote if you want to vote. If you don't want to vote, don't vote. But, exercise your rights if you want to. My personal opinion is that it doesn't matter which side you're voting for. There are all kinds of crooks. But anyway, we're not going to get into politics. We're going to leave that for something else. We're going to talk about what we can all agree on. You're not going to change anybody's mind anyway. So, but good point there, Mark. If you're get out there, vote. If you want to do that, if you want to exercise your rights, definitely take advantage of that. So Mark says, going to start with fishing questions. Does anyone melt lead for fishing weight? Are wheel weights too hard of lead to do so? I have heard that they are hard on fishing line, and some say it's okay. I don't know that answer. I can't answer that one for you. Maybe somebody will. But I don't personally melt my own, melt lead down and make my own fishing weights. I just buy fishing weights. So I don't know that I can answer that one, but I've known plenty of people that have done that, and they use wheel weights for it. So I don't know. I think it would work, but yeah, that's a good question. All right. Hello to you, Vomika, I think it is. Vomika D, maybe? Herman says, what's going on, Chris? Well, just hanging out with you guys for a little while. Says, I'm still glowing. Am I still glowing? Is it still too bright? I'm afraid if I turn it down too much, it's going to be all pixelated. It's just, I need to work on getting my, here, let me turn it down a little bit more. We'll see. Maybe that won't be too bad. I guess we can deal with that. Maybe it's not too bad. All right, Night Runner, howdy. This weekend I'm processing a chicken for the first time in 20 years. I did that not too long ago, but don't worry, it's like riding a bike. You're not going to forget. You'll get it done, so good luck with that. Hope it goes well. Patty says, I assume molting is hormonal, but my girls are beating each other up. Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. I tend to, when my birds tend to molt, you do sometimes will get birds picking on other birds. A lot of the times that can be because of a lack of protein in their diet. They need a lot of protein to regrow those feathers, and if they're picking at other feathers on birds, then that very well could be an indication that you may have a little bit low protein in their diet. You may want to bump that up a little bit. I like to use a higher protein game bird feed. I've got a 30% game bird feed, so I think 25% or higher is pretty good. You can also bump it up a little bit by adding some dry cat food. Just grind it up a little bit so it mixes in, and mix that in with your regular feed to bump the protein levels up a little bit, or catfish food, or any of those number of things. You may just need to do that temporarily until they're done molting. Help them get those feathers back in. That may help a little bit with that. You can try it and see. All right. Brody says, hey, Chris, ready for another weekly broadcast? And, oh, sorry, my dog was going nuts. I thought for sure he wanted out, but he changed his mind. All right, Rhonda, good to see you. Sparks, good to see you. Hello to you, Marie. And Rhonda says, I agree with you there, Chris. I'm not sure what I was talking about and what you agreed with me on, but thank you. And Bubba says, hey, Chris, hello from Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Hope you're all doing well. Thanks, we are doing well here. Hopefully you are too. Hello there, Maverick. And Herman says, how's the weather over there? I'm over here in West Texas, Midland, Texas. You got any new hatches? And God bless. Well, the weather has been cold and rainy all week long. We had our first hard freeze, really. A little bit of almost an ice storm. Not too bad. It iced on the windshields. You could see a little bit on like some of the plants and leaves on the trees and some of those kinds of things. But then it warmed up and it didn't cause road conditions or any of those kinds of things. But it was unseasonably cold. It's a little bit early in the year. We got our first frost on October 15th, which is the exact date that our average first frost comes on. So that wasn't too bad. But to get a hard freeze this early in the year is a little unusual. And it's been just cold. When I say cold, it's been in the mid-30s, pretty much all week, which I'm just not acclimated to. Mid-30s, maybe low 40s, and just overcast, raining every day. I think we got like 5 inches of rain over the last 4 days. But today it cleared up about noon, and the sun came out, and boy, it's nice. Anyway, Wyatt says, how's Max been after the cut on him? He's actually doing really well. It's about healed up. I mean, he's got a little bitty spot about that big that's still just working on healing up, but no sign of infection, nothing. You wouldn't know. It didn't slow him down at all. He's doing fine. All right, Maverick says, how are you? I'm doing well, Maverick. Thanks. Hope you are too. Hello to you, Ethan. Kelly says, I finally ordered my first quail eggs. So impatient. Man, I know what you're talking about. Hang in there. They'll be there in no time. All right, Connie says, hello from Larry and Connie in Summerville, Alabama. Hello to you guys. Thanks for joining. Eric says, which type of hook do you use to hang your rabbit cages? Thanks for your help. God bless. Oh, boy, what kind of hook did I get? I got some kind of, I don't even remember now that I think about it. I think it was it's a screw-in. That's what they were, screw-in hooks. I think, 100-pound weight or something like that. And I just screwed them into the back so the hook sits. Well, let's see, how do I do this? I can't turn my finger that way on camera. The hook sits like this, sideways, not up and down, if that makes sense. That's not working out. It looked weird. But anyway, hopefully you get kind of what I'm saying. So let's see, do I have anything here I can make a hook with? Here's a piece of rope. So, yeah, a piece of paracord here. So the hook, say this is the hook, it doesn't hang like this, it sits like this. Actually, more like that. Hopefully that makes sense. So anyway, that's what I used. I just got ones that could handle like 100 pounds weight or something like that, and they worked out just fine. All right, Ted says, hello, I'm planning on hatching 20 quail eggs from the supermarket. How do you think, how many do you think would hatch? I'm not even going to guess at that one, Ted. I don't think you're going to get a very good hatch rate off of it, but I may be wrong. Go ahead and try it and see. Hey there, Veronica. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. She says, first time here. Well, welcome. Vomika D says, I'm waiting in my quail hatching eggs. They come in November. I can't wait. Yeah, it's a little ways away. Good luck with those. Hopefully they do well. All right, let me grab a drink here. You can definitely tell wintertime is on. My skin is all drying out and my hands, and I'm going to put lotion on a couple of times a day to keep them from cracking and bleeding. Rhonda says, I do have a question about quail. Would there be any reason that a rooster wouldn't crow? I highly don't think I got all hens out of 25. I can't think of a reason a rooster wouldn't crow unless you don't have enough light. So if you don't have enough light and he's not, there's two things that make a rooster crow. First of all, he's got to be sexually mature, which is generally 8 weeks, sometimes 12 weeks. Sometimes it just takes a little longer, but generally right around 8 weeks old. You've also got to have enough light. You've got to have 14 hours a day of light on them in order to get the roosters to crow and get the hens to lay eggs. Roosters seem to be a little bit more sensitive to that. Well, a little less sensitive to that, I should say. Sometimes you'll get roosters crowing and the hens still aren't laying eggs, but they do still need about 14 hours a day of light to get them crowing. Crowing is a sign of mating, and they got to have that much light in order to be in, breeding, mating behavior, if that makes sense. That's the only things I can think of right offhand. You may have to just give them a little bit more time. All right. Melissa says, 2-day-old giant rabbits, litter of 12. Put 2 in with mama. They're doing good. Some of the others are wrinkly and small belly. Thinking about bringing a couple in. Any advice? Yeah, that can be tough. I generally recommend, not to remove them from the mother. But if you think you need to feed them a little bit, if they're looking a little on the skinny side, you can bring them in and feed them, a couple of times a day, a little bit to supplement them, so to speak. and then put them back in with the mom. I think this is probably the best advice. She's probably going to, 12's a big litter, so that is difficult for a mother rabbit to take care of 12 rabbits. Not uncommon to lose one or two in a litter of 12. So if you want to try that, go ahead and do it. You're going to need to get like a kitten milk replacer or a goat milk replacement, you know, some kind of little syringe or, you know, some kind of little bottle. I don't know if they make nipples small enough for a rabbit or not, but you have to get something that they'll, you know, feed them. I would think a syringe would probably be the easiest way. Just to, it's going to be a lot of work, but you can definitely do it. Hey, look at there, Night Runner, give me a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for that. First of all, let's see what you got to say. Instead of lotion on your hands, try coconut oil instead. It's antimicrobial and can help fight infection. Good suggestion. Thank you. I may give that a try, except for then my hands smell like coconut, which is not a terrible smell, but still, it's just weird. But who knows? I'll try it and see. All right. Let's see where we at here. Sparks says, just ordered my incubator and already want to order eggs, so I know what you mean. Yeah, it's tough to let that incubator just sit there for a while, isn't it? Or if you just order and you haven't even got it yet, yeah, it's patience is a virtue, and it is tough to be patient sometimes. All right, Maria Gomez here from Buckeye, Arizona. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Chato says, Chato, I think it is, says, I just gave my doe a nesting box a few more days, and I'll get some babies. Well, good luck with that. Hopefully you have a great big litter. Fox says, hello, I have one meat rabbit, new bunny with one eye halfway shut. What can I do? Sounds like they've got some kind of ear infection. I'm guessing it's not a baby. That would be, you know, nest box eye, but it can be something similar in adult rabbits as well. So if you want to try, just, you know, what I would do is just clean it out real good. What I use on babies, it would probably work on adults as well, is brew a cup of chamomile tea with some honey in it, and then use the tea bag there, dip it in that chamomile tea with the honey, and use that as kind of like a washcloth to kind of wipe the eye out and clean it out. And you'll have to do that a couple of times, probably at least every day for a couple of days. You know, honey is kind of antimicrobial as well. It can help fight infections and those kinds of things. If it doesn't clear up in a couple of days, especially if you see it start to get gunky or, you know, like signs of infection in the eye, then you may need to go to a farm supply store and get some kind of eye drops to put in there. But again, that's, you know, a tea bag, chamomile tea, brewed with honey, and use that tea bag to wipe it out has worked really well for me to treat nest box eye the few times that I've had it. All right. Rainy Day says, hey, Chris, if an adult male is aggressive with young quail, very aggressive, should he just be called? Yeah, that would be my choice if I was dealing with that. I don't deal with aggression too well. I mean, there's one thing, a little bit of fighting, pecking order to find their place, but if they're getting really aggressive with any birds, I call them out. I don't want to pass those genes on to the rest of my animals, so that gets called out of my flock. All right. Mark says, rain must be nice. Yeah, well, it was nice for the first day or two, but after about 4 days of it, I was kind of sick of it and ready for something else. All right. Connie says, looking at your video, I processed 25 quail for the freezer first time. Larry at Scoots Organic. Well, thanks, Larry. I appreciate that you found the video useful, and good job on processing all those birds. All right, Monica says, Ted, CG, I got 2 supermarket quail eggs in my incubator to learn it and practice before my eggs come in. Before my eggs come in, it'll be interesting if they do hatch. Yeah, there's a possibility. It's not likely, but there's a possibility that you might get one to hatch, or 2 of them even. Jupiter says, hey, Chris, I hope you're doing well. I am, thank you. Just finished with my quail chores, and it's so cold and windy out here in western Kentucky. Yeah, I know what you're talking. It's been cold and windy here, but it's supposed to warm up a little bit. We're going to be like in the 60s over the weekend, and all clear, so that's going to be nice. All right, Melissa says, glad Max is doing well, and so does Rhonda, so thank you guys. Yeah, he's doing very well. All right, where are we at here? Jupiter, how does your solar power light you created, how does your solar power light you created do when you get many cloudy days in a row? Well, sometimes it will, you know, it won't charge the battery up enough and it won't be able to keep up and it just doesn't come on for a couple of days. But when the sun comes back out, it does kick back on. If we've just got one cloudy day, it's usually not affected that much. But it's been nothing but gray and gloomy for like 4 or 5 days. And yeah, the lights didn't come on this morning. So we'll see how they do whenever get a full day of sunshine on them. All right, Wyatt wants to know what my favorite way to cook quail is. Boy, we get this question fairly frequently. One of my favorite ways and an easy recipe is cut the breast meat off of the bone. Just, follow it fairly closely with a knife. You can cut it away from the bone. You end up with 2 pieces of breast meat. And then take, some blue cheese is good. Put that in the middle of that. Wrap them with bacon. Brush them with some Frank's Red Hot, buffalo wing sauce. Bake them off till they're done. That's really good. Same thing with cheddar cheese and jalapeno, wrapped with bacon and maybe brushed with barbecue sauce. That's really good as well. Those are a couple of my favorite ways to eat them, but they're good a lot of different ways. I made quesadillas with them. Just, same thing. Cut the breast meat off the bone, dust them with some taco seasoning, grill them, or not grilled usually. I usually do it in a pan, but, brown them really good on each side, cook them a little ways through, and then throw them on some tortillas with some cheese and, cilantro, whatever else you like on there, and they make pretty good quesadillas that way as well. So there's a couple of different options for you. All right, Cockeyed Homestead says to Rebecca, we're north of Georgia, I'm about 15 miles from Helen. Okay, I'll let you guys talk to each other. Sam says, got into Coturnix quail because I rescued a baby valley quail. I have 2 Coturnix hens and eggs in the incubator. What plants are safe to plant in my quail pen? My quail is on the ground with no bottom. Well, that's a good question. It's probably easier to go with what plants are not safe. You want to stay away from, and I don't know that it's going to be a problem, honestly. I don't think the birds are going to eat plants that aren't safe for them, but you never know. So nightshade plants like tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, those things are all nightshades. I think potatoes are nightshades. Anyway, the plants can be toxic. Not the fruit, but the plant can be toxic to animals. So probably want to stay away from those. You're going to be safe with pretty much any kind of native grass is probably going to be fine. What else? Lettuce, if you want to plant things for them to eat, lettuce. Carrots, they'll probably eat the carrot tops as they come up. Any of those kinds of things would be fine as well. I don't know that I can give you a complete list. It's probably going to be easier to actually Google, what plants are safe to put with maybe chickens, because it'll be about the same with quail, and you'll probably get more results looking for chicken than you would for quail, if that makes sense. So I don't know that I can answer that one, though. That's a long, drawn-out one, and I don't think I can get them all. So Rhonda says, would you use raw honey or any kind of honey for the nest box eye? Yeah, if you've got raw honey, use raw honey. Really, any kind of honey is going to be fine. You can use any of it. All right, Gingerbeard says, good evening, Chris. I have some quail that are looking pretty rough, bald backs, feathers broke off at the quills and bleeding quills. Any ideas? Not all of them, but just most of them. It could be that they are they're molting. It's a pretty common about this time of year that they are molting for, I don't know why. They just seem to do it when the seasons change. So that could be what you're running into there. Now, the feathers broke off at the quills, and I'm not sure if they're broke off or if maybe they've just lost the feathers, and what you're seeing is pin feathers starting to come out. Bleeding's a little unusual unless you've got other birds picking on them, which could be a sign of, again, low protein in your feed. So if your feed is not at least, say, 25% protein, you may want to look at bumping up that protein level a little bit. A lot of times when there's low protein, you'll see birds start picking feathers off of other birds. Or if they're going through a molt and their protein, maybe is sufficient for them, but when they go through the molt, they need a little bit higher protein to grow those feathers back. You may see feather picking that way as well from your birds. So I'd say, keep an eye on them, see if you notice any other birds picking on each other. If they're picking at the feathers or anything like that, bump up your protein levels a little bit if you can. If you need to, add some, catfish food, some just dry cat food, grind those up a little bit, put them in your quail feed, and that will help boost up the protein levels a little bit. That may solve the issue for you. So try that out and see. All right, Rainy Day says, thanks, Chris. He will be going to the freezer soon. He will be going. Who's he? Oh, the aggressive bird. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's what I would do. All right, Rhonda says, right, we have had rain for the past week, getting annoying, can't do anything. Yeah, I mean, there's rain and then there's rain, and it gets pretty annoying. But anyway, Spark says, Walmart Pharmacy has small medicine droppers. Ask a pharmacy. Yeah, there you go. You can get small medicine droppers at most pharmacies. That's a good suggestion. All right, Melissa, how much luck have you had with giving baby kits from one mom to another? One of my does had a litter of 13, but she had them on the cage floor. The other doe gave birth the same night to 12 first-time moms. Ooh, boy, that's tough. I don't think I've ever had to foster kits, but it's not that hard to do. The problem you're going to have is you've got one with 12, one with 13. Now, if you're saying she had them on the cage floor, I'm guessing maybe she lost some of them. You know, anything over 10 is difficult for a rabbit to nurse all of those babies. So if you've got two rabbits, one has 12, one has 13, they're pretty much at full capacity already. There's not really much you can do to foster between the two of them. But if she has dropped down to say 8 or so, and you want to give a couple of from the one that had 12 to her to foster, you should be able to do that. Just sneak them in the cage; they should be fine. So I mean, that's it's not that difficult to do. But again, you don't want to overload the mother either. And if they're already got 12 and 13, there's not really much you can do to foster. They're already pretty much at all they can handle. Excuse me. Jupiter says, I did make quail in the slow cooker last week, finally. The meat came out very tender, but I ended up picking out tiny bones all over the place. Yeah, I can imagine. That's the problem with a slow cooker or a pressure cooker if you've got bones in the quail, because they're tiny little bones to begin with. So yeah, I would cut the meat off the bone if you're going to do something like that. It's probably a better option. Faith says, normally I get 12 eggs a day. When daylight hours lowered to 12 hours a day, placed a solar-powered light. Right now I get 2 eggs. When will I get more? Well, as long as you've got them up to about 14 hours a day of light, give them about 2 weeks to get back in the cycle, and they'll start putting out eggs again pretty quickly usually. All right. Country Air says, what are your thoughts on space buckets for overwintering veggies? I don't know what a space bucket is, so I don't know that I can give my thoughts on it, but wait, I think you go on to explain a little. I have 32-gallon trash bags. I can have a Carolina Reaper's plant I move from my garden. I'm in Kansas. Oh, okay. So you want to, here, let me think. All right, if you want to overwinter plants like peppers and things like that, and being in Kansas, I don't know what part of Kansas, but it gets pretty cold there, I'm guessing, probably about the same climate I have. Peppers are pretty sensitive to cold. When it gets down to freezing, you're going to have a hard time keeping them alive if you leave them in the ground. Even if you do cover them, it's going to be hard to keep them alive. So I think your best bet is probably to trim them back quite a bit, prune them back quite a bit, pull them out of the ground. Don't just jank them out of the ground. Dig them out of the ground the best you can. Reserve as much of the roots, try not to tear them up. Plant them in a pot or a bucket or something like that, bringing them in the house. And as long as you can keep just a little bit of light on them, keep them watered well, they should make it through the winter. Then you should be able to plant them back out in the summertime and get them to just pick back up and start growing all again. You're going to have to harden them off before you plant them out. Don't just take them from inside your house and stick them out in full sun. You need to harden them off like you would any kind of seedling. But you should be able to get them to overwinter that way. I'm not sure what space buckets are, but hopefully that's kind of along the concept as what you were thinking. All right, Gabriel says, hey, Chris, thanks for all your great info. I found answers to a lot of questions looking through your videos. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for watching them. All right, Mark says, wants to know where you're at in Kansas. Gingerbeard says, thanks so much, Chris. I'll go to the local Goodwill and get a blender, and I'll try the cat food first. There you go. That's a good idea. You don't even need a blender, honestly. Just get, a plastic bag or something like that. Put it on a hard surface and beat it with a hammer or a rolling pin or something like that. That'll be fine. You don't need to blend it up. It doesn't need to be dust. It just needs to be crumbled up. So hopefully that makes sense. So you don't necessarily need to get a blender. You could do it a couple of different ways. But all right, Melissa says, lost all 13. Oh, Melissa, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, that makes sense. Then it may be a good idea to move, 4 or 5 of those babies off the one that has 12 and move that to the other mother to see if she will foster them. Just watch them for a day or two. As long as they stay fat and happy, they're doing fine. If they start looking like they're getting real skinny, you may have to put them back with the other mother, but she should take them on. It shouldn't be an issue. All right. Nadine says, hi, travel nurse from Florida. Bought land in Tennessee just 2 months ago. Been watching and taking notes for a year. Hoping to start quail in March when I return. Is March too cold or too soon? Let's see. In Tennessee, I mean, it's not necessarily too cold or too soon, especially if you get adult birds to start with. They do incredibly well in the cold. I don't know what Tennessee is like in March. It may be a little chilly for baby birds. You're going to have to keep them in a brooder for a couple of weeks, wean them off the heat lamps. But I don't see anything wrong with starting in March. Do it if that's what you want to do. Go for it. All right. Taco says, good thing. God bless you. Hope everything is going well. Prayers for your wife and your dog. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And then he says, what day should most quail start hatching in the incubator? Generally, I think the common wisdom is about day 18, but generally I find birds start hatching usually around day 17, somewhere right around in there. Sometimes a little bit early, sometimes a little bit late, but right around 17, day 17 is when you should get most of your birds to hatch, assuming your incubator conditions are right. If they hatch a little bit earlier than that, say day 15, and that's the bulk of them are hatching on 15 or 16, your incubator may be running just a little bit high. If they hatch a little bit later than that, like 18 or 19, and that's the most of them are hatching at that time, then your incubator may be running a little bit low. And when I say a little bit, like 1 degree will make a little bit of a difference in it. So, that's a good way to kind of gauge whether your incubator's on, calibrated or working right or whatever, is how when your birds hatch. So there'd be a couple of things to check there. Hopefully that answers it. All right, Ethan. Hey, Chris. I have a quail hutch with covers to protect them from predators. Is it fine to stop putting them down in spring when they lay eggs? But stop putting down the covers? Is it fine to stop putting them down in spring when they lay eggs? I'm not sure. I'm sorry, Ethan, I'm confused. I'm not sure what we're talking about. I don't know why it wouldn't be fine to put covers down. I don't know if you're talking about, I don't know. I'm lost. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you're asking me there. You're going to have to ask it another way, and I'll answer it the best I can. I'm a little confused. All right. Dog Lips says, hey, Chris, love your podcast from the UK. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Rhonda's phone's about to die. Hopefully you can make it next week. Well, we'll see you next week, Rhonda. Country Air. Okay, the trash can is lined. The trash can. Oh, the space buckets, right? The trash can is lined with an emergency blanket and a grow light and a fan. It's a type of grow chamber. Oh, okay. Well, hey, that might work out pretty well. I'm not really familiar with them, but try it out and see how it works. I would say harvest a few of those peppers off that plant and get the seeds out of them. Make sure they're fully ripe, mature fruit, and get the seeds out of them so that if it doesn't work, you've at least got seeds. You can start another plant. But that's my best suggestion on that. But hey, it sounds like a great idea. Try it out and see how well it works. All right, Todd says, hey, Chris, from Crete, Illinois. I have 2 litters of kits that are 3 weeks old. They're nibbling on Timothy hay and greens and sometimes mama feed. Is that okay? Or should I be doing something else? No, that's perfectly fine. Normal. They're going to get out, like you said, about 3 weeks old. They're going to get out of the nest box. They're going to start nibbling on some of mom's feed. It's perfectly fine. You shouldn't have to worry about it at all. All right, Gary says, my latest brooder batch has been rough. Trouble with regulating the brooder temperature. Lost some predators. Lost some. Predators equals a 4-foot rat snake. Okay, also got in, ate several, knocked water over. 5 more died from dehydration. Oh, no, I'm sorry to hear that, Gary. It's, sometimes that happens. I had, with my last hatch of the summer, I had 1 issue with a rat snake. He was about a 4-foot rat snake, 3.5 maybe. Got in and ate a couple of my birds. I had that get in one of my brooder boxes before, but it wasn't nearly that big of a snake. It was a lot smaller. So I can feel your pain. I know what you're talking about. All right, Pierre says, God bless you, Chris. Audio on your side is poor, but loving your shirt tonight. Happy Halloween. I need to work on getting a better live setup. I know, I'm sorry, my audio's not that great. I wish I could fix that. And the video quality is not that great on this phone either. But, do what I can. I'll work on that at some point, hopefully do a little bit better with it. But thank you for the kind comments. I appreciate that. I think this is maybe the same shirt I wore last week, or one. I have 2 shirts very similar to this, so it may not have been this one. It may have been the other one. But either way, it's one of my favorites too. All right, Country Air says, basically it's a mylar line growing chamber. Okay, got it. Makes sense. Again, sounds like a great idea. Let's see where we at here. Danley Nelson, before you foster them, take fur from the mother you want to give them to so she can take her scent on them. That will help. Okay, well, that might help. Yeah, that's not a bad suggestion. Good thinking. All right. Country Air says, good idea on the seed collection. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, it's always a good idea to get a few seeds, just to make sure you don't lose them. You can restart them if you need to. And, excuse me. I've been talking too much. It's dry. one thing I will say is, I did an experiment last year, and I filmed it all, so you may have seen the videos, but I did an experiment last year with tomatoes, starting them in the garden in I think it was March, maybe it was February even, where I took milk jugs and I cut a hole in the bottom of them, and then I stapled them with garden staples down to these were gallon milk jugs. Stapled them down to the ground with garden staples, cut the side of it open so it would hinge open kind of, put a piece of tape, put a couple of tomato seeds in the bottom of that, pack that down, good like you were just planting seeds in the garden, and closed that milk jug, taped it shut, left the lid off of it, and those tomatoes grew. I mean, they did fantastic. They started way earlier than I expected them to, and they grew out the tops of those milk jugs before it was warm enough to take the milk jugs off of them. I'm going to start a little bit later this year, but I'm going to try the same thing with peppers. I don't see why it wouldn't work. So, maybe that's something to think about too. If you, I forgot where I was going with that exactly, but anyway, a little greenhouse like that can make a big difference with it. I'm just concerned about leaving a, full-grown pepper plant out all winter long. I'm not sure how well it would do, but heck, who knows? All right, Gabriel wants to know if I've ever attempted to make my own incubator. No, I have not. Well, I take that back. When I was a kid, my grandfather actually made it, but my grandpa made an incubator. It was just basically a wooden box with a 60-watt light bulb in it. I think it was 60 watt. It may have been 100 watt. I don't know. And I had a dimmer switch hooked up to it, and it had a plexiglass front. And we hatched some chickens out in that. Hatched some chicken eggs actually. But I didn't actually make that incubator, but it worked pretty well. I don't know how he managed to regulate the temperature well enough, but it worked. We hatched out chickens, and no problems. Gary says, please keep South Mississippi in your thoughts. Still out of power from a Hurricane Zeta, generator running, brooder hooked up to generator for heat lamp. Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. I did hear, and I've been so busy, I haven't been watching much of the news lately, but I did hear about the hurricane coming and hitting, and definitely have been praying for all you guys. So hang in there. It's going to get better, I promise. All right, Ann Jones wants to know how cold if outside temperature can kids tolerate? They are under an open hutch. If they've got, a good nest box full of straw, the mother's pulled fur, they can handle incredibly cold. I've had baby rabbits in below freezing temperature, in the teens Fahrenheit, and I've never had a problem with it. They do just fine as long as they're in the nest box. Now, what you got to do, you got to keep an eye on is that sometimes mother will drag one out whenever she's nursing them. So you just got to keep an eye on them, make sure they get back in the nest box if they get drug out of there. But as long as they're in the nest box, lots of straw and the mother's pulled fur, they're usually just fine. It's not a big concern. All right, Pierre says, hey Chris, what are vegetables that you're planting this winter? What are the pro and con on a greenhouse in your region? That's a good question. I'm not really planting any vegetables this winter. We do have some lettuce growing outside and some grow boxes and some carrots still growing. Actually, still have peppers on the plants. They're not completely dead yet. Everything else pretty much is, but I don't have a greenhouse. I mean, I do have a little pop-up greenhouse, but I don't have a big greenhouse. So I don't do a lot of winter growing. Maybe someday I'll be able to invest in a large greenhouse and get that set up. That would be very nice, and then you could get away with a lot of cold tolerant plants, radishes and lettuce and spinach and a lot of those kinds of things I think would do really well. Maybe even some brassicas and some of those kinds of things. But it's, and the pros and cons of a greenhouse, I think the pros are going to be you get a much longer growing season. The cons are just going to be it costs a lot. They don't last forever, so there is going to be another investment in them at some point to replace the film. I don't know what the other cons are necessarily. I need to test it out at some point. All right. Jupiter wants to know if I have a P.O. box where you can send me family. I don't have a P.O. box right now. Thank you for the thought, though. I appreciate that. I don't have a P.O. box. I'd give my address out, but then I'd have like crazy PETA people showing up at my door probably. But I mean, they would be sorry that they did more than likely. But I would rather not have that confrontation. I think we should all be able to get along. All right. Where we at? We're out of comments here for a second. So while we're out, look at that. We're only 35 minutes in. You guys not keeping me too busy tonight. All right, while we'll let the chat comments build up a little bit, I'll just tell you guys real quick. Again, I apologize for, I've only been getting like one video out a week. It's been a struggle here lately. I've got super busy. I've got a project going on if you guys don't know, I have a side business I run doing some video work and some photography, mostly photography, 360 virtual tours, some of those kinds of things. But I did have a client reach out to me and wanted me to shoot some videos for him, so I've shot a couple of interviews and working on getting those videos all together. They're due next week, so that's been a lot of work. It's a charity with the local schools called Bright Futures. You guys may have heard of that, where they help at-risk kids, pack lunch or pack snack packs for them to take home on weekends. There's a lot of different things that they do. But anyway, so I'm working with them to try to get some videos done for them for their 10-year celebration. Bright Futures is there's a national organization for them. They're in about 60 or 70 communities. But they actually started here in Joplin, Missouri, and they started 10 years ago. So they wanted some videos because of the pandemic to celebrate that. So I've been working on that. That's what I've been all swamped with, and why I've had to cut the live broadcast short last week and couldn't make it the week before. All right. Marie says, I love your channel. You encourage me growing my veggies and raise my animals. I've been learning a lot from you, how to raise rabbits and quails. Thank you so much, Chris. God bless you. Well, thank you so much, Marie. I appreciate that. Eric says, Chris, do you know of any alternatives besides hooks for hanging rabbit cages? Well, if you had some strong wire, you could use strong wire. There's probably lots of things you could use. If you had, maybe a long piece of rebar even, you could run it all the way through the cage and then like set that on things that, if that makes sense, set it on rails, I guess, would be what you would set it on. That would work too. So, all right, Jupiter says, I still have tons of tomatoes on my plants. One thing I would say about hanging rabbit cages, I wouldn't use rope. Rabbits do tend to chew on everything, and there's a good chance they're going to chew through rope if you're using rope to hold the cages up. Now, if you used rope with a steel leader on it, maybe that went around the cage, that would probably work. But anyway, hopefully that makes sense. All right. Jupiter says, I still have tomatoes on my plants. Oh, I'm jealous. Says, I found a recipe for green tomato cake that's surprisingly delicious. I do not like green tomatoes at all. My grandpa loved them, and my grandma would make him a green tomato pie every year. It's the most disgusting thing ever. I don't know how he ate it, but he loved them. And, yuck, can't do it. Anyway, jealous of the tomatoes, though. All right, Lucky says, laughing at my crazy people comment. Yeah. Lucky 13 Quail says, hey, Chris from Southeast Kansas, how do you raise the rabbits in the automated, how do you raise the birds, in the automated brooder you use, and how many could you brood in one tub? Is that tub with the Inkbird thermometer what you use currently? Okay. Yeah, I do use an Inkbird thermostat. I don't use the homemade one I made, and I did a video on that a long time ago. I actually have one now that's a Wi-Fi model. It actually connects to the Wi-Fi in my house, but I don't have it connected there. There's an app that you can look on it, and you can set the temperature on the app and all that kind of stuff, and it's pretty cool. But because I've been brooding out in my shed, my Wi-Fi doesn't go that far, so I don't use the Wi-Fi feature on it. But, I do set the temperature on it. In one of those, I don't know, what are they, 13-gallon tubs or whatever, I can usually get away with about, when they're first born, for about the first week, 40 of them would fit in there. But usually, if I want to brood all of them in one tub, and I want to brood them all the way out until they're ready to go out to the grow-out pen, about 15 to 20 is about the max that I can get in there. It starts getting pretty crowded, and usually by about 2.5 weeks, it's getting incredibly messy. It's got to be cleaned out about every day. So it's that's, I say 2.5 weeks, usually about a week and a half, honestly. So anyway, sorry, I got distracted by an email there. So hopefully that answers that question for you. Let's see what else we got. How old do you raise the birds too? Okay, let's talk about that then. It depends a little bit on the weather outside. If it's summertime and it's fairly warm outside, about 2 weeks, and they're ready to go out. Once they're fully feathered out, wean them off the temperature, just reduce it by about 5-10 degrees every day or two, and until your birds are kind of used to that, and then move them outside. They're fine. When it's colder outside, I like to give them till about 3 to 4 weeks, just to make sure they're fully acclimated. Wean them off that heat a little bit slower before I move them outside. But anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Country Air says, I have plenty of questions, just don't want to appear like a spammer, LOL. You don't have to worry about it unless you're asking the same question over and over and over and over again, waiting for me to answer it. But yeah, ask your questions. I'll do my best to get to them. All right. Melissa says, any idea what to do with a serious overabundance of chicken eggs, please? Yeah, I know that problem. There's a couple of things you can do with eggs. There are options to like water glass them, and I'm not sure about that. I've read some things that say that may not be the safest thing or the best thing. I've also seen people coat them with wax and just store them on the counters. I guess that would work pretty well. I think my ideal way to do it would be to crack them and put them in, small containers. Maybe it would be, here, let me grab a drink here. Even Ziploc bags and freeze them. You can use that for like scrambled eggs and things like that. That would work okay for that. I don't know. My biggest suggestion would be to give them away to some of your neighbors. Find a church group or something that needs some food or something like that, and feed them. Just pay it forward. It'll come back to you in some way or another, I'm sure. It's a good way to make good friends with your neighbors and make sure that they don't complain about your chickens or anything else, So that would be my suggestion. Find some people that need it and gift it to them. All right, Gary says, I still have jalapenos in cattle molasses tub. I just picked about 4 quart, but 40s temp tonight may slow that. Yeah, it could, but Jupiter's saying you can freeze eggs. Nikki says, my bunny is free roam in my house. My bunny is, free roam, I bet what you're saying. Free roam in your house. Boy, I bet you don't have any extension cords or anything left. Maybe not. We had a rabbit when I was a kid that was, we tried to let free roam because the pet store told us, yeah, you can litter box train them and just let them run in your house. And it did not work out. That rabbit chewed up everything. It was really destructive. All right, Ricky says, I have a 6-month-old Florida white doe and a 4.5-month-old buck and a 4.5-old buck. I bet that's supposed to be buck. 4.5-year-old buck is probably what you're saying. So hey, sounds like you got a good breeding pair there. Country Air says, I'm looking at getting a pair of meat rabbits possibly this weekend. What kind would you suggest? I used to have Californians. Californians are great. Californians are a great meat rabbit. Florida whites are a good one. New Zealand whites, you can't go wrong with. Silver foxes are good. There's so many different breeds of meat rabbits that are good. You can't go wrong with any of those. If you can find Tamuk in your area, that's one that I would definitely go with. Those are a New Zealand white, but they're specifically a Texas A&M variety of New Zealand white. They're bred to be much more heat tolerant than others, and really good genetics, fast growth rates, big litters. They're really good. So yeah, you can't go wrong with those. All right, Miguel says, hey, Chris, watching your live video and enjoying a cold Coke. Well, hey, we're it's a Pepsi, but it's along the same lines. All right, Nikki says, I'm drinking Coke too. Coke is best. And now we're going to argue about our soda pop choices, huh? I'm typically a Pepsi drinker, but I'm not that picky. I'll Coke or Pepsi, either one. They both taste pretty close to the same. I'm about out here. I may have to go get another one. How much time we got left? Oh, I think I can make it. All right. Cannabear says, what's the coldest Coturnix and Celadon before they need a heat source? What's the coldest for Coturnix? Well, Celadon are a Coturnix quail, but, I've never provided a heat source to my adult birds, and I don't think I've ever lost one to the cold. And again, it's gotten down well below 0 before. We've had, negative Fahrenheit temperatures for multiple days. I've never had a problem. I couldn't tell you what the coldest they can handle is, but as long as they're not in the wind, as long as you can give them a way to get out of the wind, and they can handle the cold pretty well. All right. Maria says, my quails are laying lots of eggs. I don't know what to do with all of them. I've been pickling and eating them. You have any other way that you save the quail eggs? Honestly, what I do, and here's a good suggestion. It looks like Nikki's got a good suggestion. Crack the eggs into an ice tray. It works good. Also, community food banks would love to give them away. There you go. Good suggestion, Nikki. Yeah, I don't really, what I do with my eggs, I give a lot of them away whenever I have an overabundance of them. Just a good way. It's a good way to make friends with your neighbors. Lots of people can use them. It's a good, there's no reason to let them go to waste if there's somebody that can use them. But other than that, I just store them in the fridge. They store for a pretty long time. And then, whenever I go to use them, I float test them and I throw out the bad ones. And that usually is a pretty good way to stay on top of it. Sometimes, we'll get a whole bunch of eggs all together, and then we just make a bunch of deviled eggs and we take them to some party or something like that. Deviled quail eggs are fantastic. It's a little bit of work, but they are really, really good. Rainy Day Stay. I started my quail adventure in AW, Florida. I don't know what that is. We'll be moving to AE, Missouri soon. Is there anything I need to consider with a different area? I don't know what AW and AE stands for. I should know that probably, but I don't know. I'm lost on that. Anyway, no, I don't think there's really anything different. I wouldn't worry about it. Moving from Florida, I mean, just, it's going to be colder where you go probably, but that shouldn't be a big deal. There shouldn't be anything you have to worry about. Again, just make sure that you provide some way for the birds to get out of the weather, covered, out of the wind, and they're going to be fine no matter what. All right. Jupiter's leaving, it looks like. Have a great night, Jupiter. Uh-oh. What's wrong, puppy? You got to go out? You hear him crying. Let me let the dog out real quick. He's crying, and he'll sit there and continue to cry. There you go. There we go. Sorry. I knew that wouldn't take long, though. All right, let's get back into it. Where are we at here? Ann says, I did have a 7-day-old kit out of the nest a couple of mornings ago. It was cold, and stiff. I brought it in the house, made a Ziploc hot pad, and was able to revive it. Yeah, you'd be surprised. A lot of times you look at one of those baby rabbits and think, oh, there's no way. But, always remember, it's not dead until it's dead with blood in the nails. So if you don't see blood in the nails, there's a good chance you're going to be able to bring it back. And what I usually do is, similar to you, I usually put them in a Ziploc bag and then fill my water or my sink with warm water and lay them in there. So I put them in a bag, don't seal it up, leave it open so they stay dry, so they don't get wet. But that does help warm them up, and you can save a lot of them that way. All right. Nikki says she's not a chewer. She's not a chewer. Oh, the rabbit that runs free in your house? She's not a chewer at all and is fully litter trained. She doesn't chew anything. You are lucky. All right, Melissa says, I have 2 giant lop does and a continental giant buck. Can we say big rabbits? Yeah, I can imagine. Chris says, hello from Arkansas. Hello to you. And he's arguing with us on our soda pop choice. Coke is king. And great vids. Thanks, Andy. I appreciate that. Eric says, thank you for the rebar idea for hanging cages and warning about rope. Scratch the hay rope idea. Yep. I don't know what made me think of that, but it just hit me that rope's probably not a great idea. All right. Canada Bear says, I think water and feet frozen to wire is biggest cold concern. Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. And not necessarily feet froze to the wire. I mean, as long as they don't get wet, they're not going to freeze to the wire probably. But the water is an issue, and I should talk about that for a second. Because I can't, let's see, how do I say it? Okay, I can't use my automatic waterers in the wintertime, not when the temperature's below freezing anyway, because it just freezes up. There's no way to keep it from freezing, aside from heating the whole area, which is just incredibly inefficient. So the automatic watering system comes down, and I water them in little, like my feed tubs basically, or little Tupperware style containers, and I cut holes in them for them to stick their heads through. But I like that kind of a watering for them in the wintertime. It's going to freeze. I'm going to have to knock ice out of them pretty regularly, but it keeps them from getting in the water. And if you just put an open bowl in with water in it, they're going to get in it. They're going to get wet, or they're going to just at least foul it up, and it's going to be nasty as can be. So having something with a lid on it, they can stick their heads through to get a drink, works out really, really well. You're going to have to put, water them a couple of times a day when it's freezing, because it will freeze up. Spencer says, you, sir, are a legend. I don't know about that, but thank you for the kind comments. All right, Peace World. Thank you for getting me into rabbits. Me and my brother got 2 does and 1 buck and getting quail this summer. Awesome. Congratulations on your rabbits and the upcoming quail. All right, Was Couple says, do you think for a first-time doe it's a good idea to put the nest box in a little earlier than usual so she can get used to the box before having her litter? It usually put it in at 28, 29 days. You know, that may not be a bad idea, but I don't know that I'd put it in too early because there's a good chance that she's going to use it as a litter box. And then that's going to have the opposite effect of what you're looking for there. What I typically do is I throw a handful of straw, starting about day 25 or so. Throw a handful of straw in the cage. When the doe picks it up and starts running around with it hanging out both sides of her mouth, I put the nest box in. She's ready to build a nest. Some days that's day 25, some days it's 27, some days it's 28. It just depends, you know. So that's how I kind of gauge when it's time to put the nest box in. Putting it in too much earlier, again, she's going to use it more of like a litter box, and then again, it's going to have the opposite effect of what you're looking for. I think I'd wait till she's ready to build her nest before I put it in. All right. Steve says, have you ever tried to make your own quail food? What would you suggest using for a protein source? No, I have not tried to make my own quail food. I'm not really able to answer that one. You're going to have to research that one quite a bit. There's a lot that goes into it. Quail need more than just protein. You know, they need certain kinds of protein, animal proteins and vegetable proteins, and they need a varied diet. And I don't know that I can tell you the best suggestion for that one. Sorry, I need to study that a little bit. I get asked that question periodically, but I just don't know. I'm not well, would that be a biologist? I don't know. That would know those answers. I don't have that one. Sorry. Pete's Worldwide Reptiles. Would you recommend getting quail in the winter Pacific Northwest? Well, I've never been to the Pacific Northwest, or have I? No, I don't think I have. But anyway, but yeah, I don't see. I mean, if you want to get quail, get in the winter. Get quail in the winter. There's no as long as they're adult birds, and especially if you get them locally, they're already acclimated to your weather. If you've got a good setup for them, there's no reason not to get them in the winter. All right, Tanya says hello from Wales, UK. Hello to you. Good to see you. Nikki says I am truly blessed. She's a Holland Lap and is my therapy support buddy. She's amazing. Well, good. Glad to hear it's going well. Ibezi says, good evening. My quail all have slowed down eating. Is this common for the winter? Thank you for everything. Well, it's not uncommon. It's not necessarily wintertime. My rabbits do the same things. They just go through phases where they eat a little bit more than other times, and then they slow down at other times. There's a lot of different factors that can go into that, and I don't know that it's necessarily wintertime that's causing that. But I will say if you haven't provided supplemental light and they've stopped laying because the days have gotten shorter, then yeah, they're probably going to eat a little bit less. They're just not going through they're not burning off the calories making eggs and all those kinds of things. All right. Lamongi says, greetings from Brazil. Big fan. Well, thank you so much. Spencer wants to know, what a rabbit tastes like? That's such a hard question to answer. That I mean, how do you describe what something tastes like? It's very much like chicken, very similar. It's a lot leaner than chicken, so it does have a tendency to dry out and be a little bit tough sometimes if you don't cook it right. But you could pass it off as chicken and people would believe it. Something Fishy says, if you were having fertility issues with a pair of rabbits, what would you replace first, the buck, doe, or flip a coin and decide? Boy, that's a good question. I don't know. I think I'd have to look into it a little bit more, like what could be causing the issue. Sorry, get a drink here. If all you've got is one pair, you're not going to be able to really test them out, like the doe with a different buck or the buck with a different doe. So you won't be able to figure it out that way. Yeah, I don't know that I can answer that one for you. I think it'd probably be specifics of my animals, like how old's the buck, how old's the doe. If the buck is really old, well, maybe he's just getting too old. If the doe is pretty old, maybe she's getting too old. There's a lot of different things that could go into that. So I guess I'm kind of leaning towards the size of flip a coin, and see if that fixes your issue. Not sure I can answer that one. I'm sorry. Hello to you, Boris. Let's see. Benny says, how much animals I got? I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. Thank you for your vids from Pete. You're welcome. Thank you for watching. Student Axel says, hi, how much pellets should I give my rabbits even if I give them vegetables? I love your vids. Okay, so thank you for that, by the way. You pretty much want to feed your rabbits just as much as they'll eat within 24 hours. So I don't know how many vegetables you're giving them, but, give them a little bit of pellets. If there's still pellets left there the next day when you go to feed them, give them a little bit less the next day. If when you go to put pellets in their feeder, if they just dive into the feeder like they're starving, give them a little bit more. I usually give about, I don't know, what is that, like 6 ounces? Maybe that's a little high. something like that. 6 ounces of feed per day is pretty close to the average of what my rabbits get. But again, I just watch them. There's times where, boy, they eat it all, and the next day they're just act like they're starving, so they get a little bit more. And then that'll usually last for a couple of days, and then they'll go back to eating just the normal amount every day. So it just kind of depends. But that's how you can kind of gauge it, is just figure out that, how much they're going to eat within a 24-hour period. And it's going to depend a little bit on how many vegetables you give them, what kinds you're giving them. If that varies, then they're going to need more pellets when there's less, and all those kinds of things. So just watch your rabbits, let them tell you how much they need. All right, Spencer says, what can I feed my rabbits for them to taste better? I don't know that there's anything you can feed them to make them taste better. I'm not sure it would make much of a difference. What you can do is, make sure you cook them right. And not that you're cooking them wrong, I don't mean it that way. But, I like to use chicken stock when I cook them, some kind of liquid, heavy on the spices and things because they take on the flavor of whatever you cook them with. So that will help a lot. All right. Student Axel says, I have 2 virgin rabbits. Should I do something specific to breed them? Well, just breed them like you would any other rabbit. Take the doe to the buck. Never take the buck to the doe. Leave them in there for 15 minutes or so. See if you get a successful fall off. If you don't, try again that evening. Try again the next morning. Try again the next evening. There's nothing really special you do with first times other than just regular, breeding of rabbits. All right. Banana, how are we doing here? Oh, about 4 minutes left. Banana Boy says, is older quail meat chewier than younger quail meat? I haven't noticed, maybe a little bit, but they're not like other animals where there's a significant difference between younger versus older. It doesn't really get any, they do get a little bit more fat on them, which is not a bad thing as they get older. So I haven't noticed them being, chewier or tougher or any of those kinds of problems. All right, Country Air says, Chris, do you know how to get NPIP tested and certified? I don't know the exact steps to it. Seems I looked it up one time. It's not that hard, but I don't remember the specifics on what you have to do and who you have to contact to get certified. Just basically testing. You just have to contact them and get them to come out and test your animals. It's not that difficult, but I can't point you in the exact right direction. Sorry about that one. All right, Maria says, I have 3 female rabbits. What do you think? It's a good idea to breed them all at the same time. Well, it depends. Do you want that many baby? You're looking at, if they all have litters of 10, you're looking at 30 baby rabbits at one time. And not just 30 baby rabbits, but 30 8-week-old rabbits at one time, whenever they get older. So that's a lot of rabbits. I think I would stagger it a little bit if it was me, but that's totally up to you. You can do it however you want to. Pete's Worldwide Reptile says, are quail worth it? Well, that's very subjective. So it may be worth it to you. It may not be worth it to you. It's worth it to me. I get a good egg production out of them. They're fairly easy to take care of. I get a good meat production out of them. It's worth it to me, but I don't know if it is for you. You just have to make that decision for yourself. Spencer says, should I inspect my rabbit's stool? Well, it depends. Are they having some kind of problem, or is there a reason? I don't really keep an eye on mine all that often unless I notice they're acting lethargic or something like that, and then I'll kind of keep it a closer eye, see if they've got some diarrhea or something like that. But other than that, I don't bother with it. But it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad practice. All right, Lucky13 says, how are we doing? 2 minutes left. Lucky13 says, I hatched my first quail ever this month, 13 Jumbo Brown. Very nice. I was inspired by you and other YouTubers to try them. I had one past Monday, and it never grew any in 2 weeks. Should that be concerning? Probably not. There's no way. Oh, you got more to that. Their other 12 look great and healthy, lots of feathers. Probably not. Who knows? It could be some kind of genetic disorder the bird had. It could be some kind of illness it had. There's a number of different reasons that could happen. I wouldn't let it bother you. It's probably just a one-off thing. No big deal. All right. Bill says, do quail do okay with chicken scratch as a treat? It's not a bad idea to give them. It's fine. You can give them a little bit as a treat. You wouldn't want that to be their main diet, but it's not bad to have some of that as a treat for them every once in a while. It's perfectly fine. Spencer says, it's 24 rabbits too many. That depends. It's too many for me, but if you've got the right setup, you can keep up with the cleaning and all that kind of stuff, then it's not necessarily too much for you. But again, that's a subjective answer. It It depends. All right, Melvin says, good evening from Michigan. I started raising New Zealand rabbits this summer. Now I have 15 breeding does. Awesome. That's a pretty big jump. So congratulations on your success there. I'm glad that it's going well for you. And student says, I've been trying to breed my rabbits, but they seem inexperienced, and it looks like they don't know what to do. Just keep trying. They're going to figure it out. I've got a couple of videos on what to do if they're reluctant to breed, but the biggest thing is usually just keep trying. Try in the morning, try in the evening, try in the morning, try in the evening. They're going to figure it out pretty quick. If they're young, 6 months old, you might give them a couple of weeks or a month to get a little bit older, and then start trying. But other than that, just keep trying. You're going to figure it out. Or they are going to figure it out, not you. Sorry. Mary says, I love your show. I started Quail thanks to you. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm glad you like that one. Or like the videos anyway. All right. We're right at an hour. I got to wrap this up tonight. I got other things I got to do before bedtime. So I'm going to let you guys get off here. Hopefully we will be back next week. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. Thank you guys so much for watching tonight. Thanks for joining me. And as always, God bless. We will see you guys next week. Take care.